Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to get ready to talk about tools of the trade. So, when you have tools of the trade are your hooks, your scissors, all the tools that help you create the perfect artwork. So for us, we're going to start with foundation cloth. And there's a lot of different foundation cloths that we have and that you use. So the most common, what we used to use, was called burlap, Scottish burlap. We don't use burlap anymore because of the fact that it is not a stable backing. So this is what the burlap looks like. It's very rough to your hands, not very good for your hands. It doesn't stay as long, and we want our artwork to stay for centuries. So we are now moving away from the burlap, and we've gone into the next thing that people like to use is monk's cloth. This is monk's cloth, as you can see. The lines are here, but it is woven, so sometimes the lines go off a little bit. And I'm going to use my cheat sheet, okay? And with the monk's cloth, we have this in two widths now, 60-inch and 75-inch width. This is 100% cotton, okay? Those that hook in 2s, 3s, and 4s love to have their patterns printed on monk's cloth because it's square and you can split in between and pull up in between all of your little cuts. So monk's cloth is wonderful. It's also used for Oxford punch. It is a very forgiving background. It is a cotton background. So when you see the stripe, this is monk's cloth. Okay? So now we're going to go into rug warp. Rug warp is rolled cotton. It's a much stiffer background. And you can see this. When you're hooking an oriental rug, it's wonderful to put on rug warp because when you're done, you do have very straight lines. When you're done, at the end, you can fringe it with the monk's cloth, or you can add warp, sorry. Warp is 60 inches. It's 100% cotton backing, and it's suitable for 3 to 6 cuts. Because of the squares and the holes, you really shouldn't go above a 6 cut, although if you feel you can, try that. And again, that comes in 60-inch width. This is warp. Okay? The next one is our bleached linen. Our bleached linen is 60 inches in width. It is a wider weave. People love the bleached linen because they can see the pattern clearer. And it is 12 strands per inch. This is woven for us in Scotland, and it's suitable for size cuts 4 and up. People have hooked hand torn on it. They've hooked all sorts of different cuts into that. Okay? But this is for your wider cuts. This is our most popular. This is linen. It is woven in Scotland. This is what we call our fine linen because of the weave, not the cut. Now this linen, unbleached, is our most popular. We have it in 60-inch width and 72-inch width. This is 14 strands per inch, and it accommodates anywhere from a 3 cut, and I use this foundation. This happens to be my favorite foundation, and I hook it in an 8.5. I have hooked up to an 8.5. I have not tried hand torn yet on it. So this is our traditional rug hooking backings that we have. Now here is something that was very popular. It's gone away, but it does make a reappearance every once in a while, and this is called Varel. Varel was synthetic. It kind of looks like what lined a cubicle if you were ever in an office and this was a cubicle lining. And this is wonderful because you don't have to hook the background if you want to get a little lazy, you want to make a little pillow. I love to Oxford punch on this Varel, and it's also good, as you can tell from the weave, for very small cuts. So this is called Varel. It's hard to find, it's no longer being produced, but if you are looking to make ornaments, it's a little stiffer. Pillows, you will be able to do that. So there is a non-traditional backing, but still a backing. Now for those of you that use the miniature punch, we have weaver's cloth. And weaver's cloth is like a heavy muslin. It's got 60 poly, 40 cotton. You can tell how tight it is. We punch on this. This is our natural. It's 44 inches in width. And this is for the miniature punch. You can get it in different colors, or you can even dye it to any color you would like. But that is our weaver's cloth. This is, if you're an experienced punch needler, this is a very, very tightly woven wool. It is a little slick when you do your miniature punch, but if you don't want to punch your background and you want to just put a cardinal on this, some holly, it makes a very, very nice punch background. And we have an example of that right over here. And here is a cardinal with the miniature punch on it. Okay. So we have our foundation cloth, and you have a pattern that you'd like to transfer. We'll get to the hooks in a minute because I know a lot of you will have questions about hooks. We will try and read your questions live if we can. If we can't read them live, I will answer later on. So if you want to wait till later in the broadcast to ask questions, you're more than welcome to. But you've picked your foundation cloth. And now, usually to transfer a pattern, we would use red dot. This was the traditional, and notice the word was, the traditional red dot that you could go through. It was very transparent. It's becoming very, very hard to get. People loved it. You could put it on a light box. You would draw your pattern on with a Sharpie. And I recommend the new industrial Sharpies. They seem to work better. But for some reason that we don't know, we can no longer get this like we used to. So this is the new red dot, and I know several of you had asked me prior to this to show the new red dot in comparison. It is much thicker. You can still see it through a light box with a Sharpie, or you can put it up to a window with a Sharpie. However, what you can't do is you can't draw on this and have it go through your linen. It has to go underneath your linen with your pattern and then have a light box. So that is how that works. Also, one of the benefits of the heavier red dot is if you make a pattern, you have the pattern for quite a while. You can hang it on a hanger in your studio closet, go back and use it again. They keep for many, many years. When I first started Pia's for Primitive way back, I used this type of red dot, and 21 years later I still have those patterns. So it does have some bad sides, but also some good sides with it. So we've got our pattern, we've put it on our linen, we've color planned our wool. If you watched the video from last time, how you pick your backgrounds and put your wool together. And you need to put it on a frame. Some people do hook without a frame. The basic frame, or the basic way to start, is with a Morgan hoop. And if you start with a Morgan hoop, it is a Morgan locking hoop. This happens to be a 14-inch Morgan locking hoop. And the reason why it's a locking hoop is it has the groove. So this is great for travel. It goes in your suitcase. It's very lightweight. But when you go to put your backing on a Morgan locking hoop, it will lock. So you put that on the bottom, you open it up, you put it down, just like that. And this is one time when you use a hoop, you can't do it in the air. You have to put it down this way. And you'll see that all you have to do is tighten it, just like that. Whoop, and it didn't work. See, because it's live on the air. But I want to show you how tight this can be. So, down, on, open it up, and push it in. And you will actually hear it click. and it will click all the way around. There we are, and that's in. So now you just tighten it, just like that, and you can see it getting tighter, and it will be as tight as a drum when it's done. It stays tight, however, like anything else, in the evenings I would take it out of your Morgan hoop as if it were needlepoint and let it rest. I wouldn't keep it in a hoop overnight, just in case it will stretch your pattern or misalign your pattern, but it's as tight as it can be, ready to hook. Some people like to use gripper frames. Here is one gripper frame, and the two things that nobody can pick for you in the art of rug hooking is your hook or your frame. Their recommendations, what other people use. However, that is entirely up to you as the individual rug hooker. So you have to choose what's comfortable in your lap, what's comfortable for your height, how you would like it to be. So with this is a frame that rotates for those that like to move their work. It breaks down for travel. It will go in a suitcase. You can do it this way or this way. Now when buying a gripper frame, I always tell you to make sure, no matter what gripper frame you buy, that it is curved when you buy a gripper frame much like this. This gripper frame allows with the curve for you to really wrap it and stay tight. And we will put a piece of monk's cloth on this one. Just by pulling it, it's nice and tight. And if you notice, the lines are not straight, so you've better make them straight. So there it is. So now you can tilt it this way, that way, it can sit in your lap. If you like a floor frame, there are all sorts of floor frames. My suggestion is before you purchase a frame, if you have a local store or somebody who rug hooks or a group, and they'll let you try some different frames, try different frames. You shouldn't hunch over the frame. It should be clear. It should be easy for you to work with. Now we have the hooks. And I know that people had a lot of questions last time about the hooks. So now we're going to talk about beginner, intermediate, and all different hooks. We right here at Joan Moshimer Studio have been making hooks for quite some time. And these are our maple hooks. Everything is made in the USA. This is called a thimble top after the antique hooks, and it's made to look like a thimble. This is our primitive hook. This is our fine short hook. And you can always tell what it is on the bottom because it will have an F or a medium. This is our medium. This is our fine hook, regular size. And this is our coarse hook. Now how you hold your hook is completely what is comfortable for you. You can hold it like this, you can hold it like a pencil. There is no right or wrong way to hold the hook. It's what is comfortable in your hands. Is it lightweight? Do you push it in and out? What size are you using? What size noodle are you using? So they all come into play. But this is a good, solid beginner hook. They're $10.95. It's a good way to start. If you have grandchildren or nieces and nephews that you want to teach how to hook, it's a great hook. If you have a dog that likes to chew the hooks, it's always good to keep some of these around so that they don't chew your good hooks. Another type of hook is the Hartman hook. The Hartman hooks are made in Ireland. There are all different types of Hartman hooks, and again, it is up to you. This is an Ergo hook where you would put your thumb here. A lot of people love this because it tells you where to put your hand. This is for 2, 3, 4 cuts. As you can tell, it's very small. Again, it has a brass thimble top. And then if you hook in a little bit wider cut, 4, 5, and 6, here you go again. And these are called Ergo when they have that right there. This is a newer hook. This is called a shorty. It is an 8mm. It's so that you don't continually move your wrist. You go in and out, in and out. It's a shorter length. When you do this, it's called fishing. And when you fish, then sometimes you will cross your loop, turn your loop, make it uneven. So by going in and out, it punches a big hole for size 8 and above, and you can pull it out more easily in your backing. This is the bent hooks. These are 8mm bent hooks. Now, even though they're 8mm, they can be used for different sizes. A bent hook, and this is another one of our bent hooks, a bent hook has a lot of benefit to it. Number one, it takes the pressure off your shoulder, no matter whose bent hook. This allows you to work the smaller end of it in a 6 and a 7 and then an 8 and a 9 and a hand torn. So by how far down you go, it is whatever size noodle you are using. So these actually work for more than one size cut. And the bent hooks are also ergo. They have a place for your thumb. And it doesn't matter if you're left or right-handed, the way that the ergo is, it will go in either hand. So if you are left-handed, this also applies to you. And later on, I'll use the bent hook and show you how it gets pushed in and out. This is another style of bent hook, and it goes down and up, almost like a sewing machine. And this means no movement of your wrist. Any questions yet? No questions, okay.
Not
good.
at the moment.
Okay. These are pencil hooks. There are many different types of pencil hooks. When you use a pencil hook, this is how you would hold it. Yes, you have the tendency to do what I would do with a normal pencil and you get the callus. But if you use a pencil hook, these are nice, they're lightweight, they're not heavy in your hand, and these are for different size cuts once again. Okay? And this, as you can tell, is for the bigger cut. Now you can get fancy. This is another type of pencil hook. This is a Miller pencil hook. And this has a very, very much a curved hook. And this is great when you're working on monk's cloth or finer cuts to pull up and not shred. So there are different widths to this, but you don't have to worry about shredding because you will put it into the hook. And this is a Miller pencil hook, but it has a wooden handle. Now, sometimes with these hooks, when you overgrip the pencil hooks, you can get the little rubber piece to put on, just like you would to hold your pencil.
What is the best hook for hands with arthritis or wrists that have problems?
Okay, good question. Thank you for asking. When you have arthritis or if you have trouble with your wrists, I would prefer a bent hook. A bent hook or a pencil hook. It depends upon if you're going to hold this pencil hook too tight, it's going to aggravate your arthritis into your wrist. If it does not, if you're not going to overdo it, then you can use it. If you overdo your grip, if your grip is really tight, I will hold this too tight. I would use a bent hook because you're not putting the pressure up into here, into your joints. It's an in and an out, an in and an out, and you rock. So if you have arthritis into here, you have your ergo here to take your pressure off. So that will help. And if you notice, the bend isn't as deep as this. So it's more of a rocking motion, not an up and down motion, which will hurt your shoulder. Hopefully that helps you. And these come in 4, 6, and 8mm. Now there are many other hooks. There are wood turners who turn hooks, and you can get fancy. These are sterling hooks with a brass tip. And all that means is it doesn't help. It just means it may feel good in your hands. You may like it in your hands. It doesn't make you hook quicker. It doesn't make you hook faster, but it is pretty. And then there is this one. And this is for the men who hook, who have a bigger hand, or if you have a bigger hand and you can hook it many different ways like this. But it does accommodate a bigger hand even than mine, and it feels this way you don't have as much. It is curved to take the pressure off. Again, it's pretty to look at, doesn't really make you hook any quicker. That just takes practice.
Is there a difference between a coarse and a primitive?
Yes, there is a difference. A primitive hook, our primitive hooks are always blue, that's how we can tell them. And that is just a little bit wider head and wider shank. And the coarse hook, as I look on the bottom, this is a coarse hook. And a coarse hook is not as wide. So this would accommodate up to a size 5 cut, and then I would go 6 and above with this one. Also, it's very good when you're going to hook for a long period of time. You've blocked out an hour, nobody's around, you've got the frame to yourself, you can do what you'd like. If you're going to hook for more than an hour or even a half hour, after 20 minutes, switch your hook. And what I mean by switch your hook is, just say this is the hook you're using and you've been using this, it's your usual hook. Switch it out. Go to this hook. Just do it for 5 or 10 minutes. It holds differently, it may be lighter weight in your hands, there may be a lot more things going to change your grip, and then you can go back to your normal hook. So that is a very good thing to keep in mind so that you can switch it all around. Now this is an Oxford punch. An Oxford punch is what we use with yarn on monk's cloth, and people always ask me, well, how do you know?
Okay, caught up.
Okay. Sorry, I think we froze out for a moment, but I think because we have a lot of people on and Facebook freezes for a little bit, so I think we're back. Anyway, this is a size 10. This is an Oxford punch, and you can tell what size it is by that. Also, you can tell what size yarn is going to fit by sliding it through. If it slides through easily, the yarn will go through. So we've got our hook, we've got our pattern, we've got our frame, we've got our foundation. Scissors. Scissors are very, very important. You should have a good pair of scissors. They should not be cutting paper, plastic. They should be your fabric scissors. A good starter pair is the offsets. The offsets, we'll demonstrate those later when we do the sculpting, are so you can snip the ends even. And also with these pointed hooks, they can go into little crevices, and if you have to clip something on the side, it will also work. So these are our good beginner scissors. They're work. They're not as sharp or as long-lasting as gingers. Gingers are always the best, but these really do work, and they allow you to keep your work even. This is a smaller version. And this also works, very pointed to get into little points and curves, very lightweight. You can always find them with the pink handles. They're not as big on your frame. So if you don't have a large frame, or if you don't have a big space on your frame and you want to use a scissor sitter to sit them on, these also work as well. These also, I believe, because several of my students have used these, and they also will travel on planes. These are a size to travel on planes. The next thing is a scissor sitter. And we're going to step over here for a second because I'm going to tease everybody. And here is the scissors on a scissor sitter, which is a magnet. And this is what we're going to do in a little bit at the end of the broadcast, so stay tuned. Now, everybody asks about the scissor sitters when we talk about them. The scissor sitters are 2 magnets. Cute little shape up front, but 2 very, very strong. Pacemaker, do not wear this or put this near the pacemaker. The magnets are that strong. But then when you put your scissors on it, they will stay. So you know where your scissors are. And I think It'll also hold the hook. So it will hold both. So you have cut wool. It's all over the place. The noodles are all over. You're trying to do a nice look, a graduated swatch. Here is a good way to keep it safe. If you have cats like I do, and you have Ollie like I do, Ollie likes to take one and run around the house as a game and then chew on it. So if you keep it here, you can't pull it out, and these are strip sorters. Now, it's not just for graduated swatches. It works for textures, it works for any rug you're working on. And what you do is you just write what it's for here in pencil, and I believe you can erase it afterwards or put a little sticky. And it also, some of us, we forget what color goes where, so if our pattern is numbered, we can put the numbers out here. And it keeps it very nice, very organized, and then they can just slip in your bag and not knot up. So strip sorters are also very, very good. Oh, I did not go over this pair of scissors. This is called the Perfect Scissors. They're great for your hands, they have a protective, and if you buy, it's a micro serrated blade, and if you buy these are not for husbands to use, these are not for your children to use, and don't cut your wrapping paper with it either. That's the other thing as well. But they have a nice grip, and they are called the Perfect Scissors. And if I'm cutting wool into fat quarters, if I'm cutting yardage, I really like to use the Perfect Scissors. And yes, I do hide them from everybody else.
Someone would like to know if we sell those sorters.
Yes, we do. We do sell the sorters. They are
$16.50, I think.
Yep, they are $16.50 for a pack of 6, and they're on our Etsy shop. Now, also, if you like to know color, the thing that I get most when I teach is I can't pick color. I don't know how to do color. Well, everybody always dresses so nicely in class. Everybody is always put together. You know how to put color together, but when it comes to the rugs, some people have hesitation. This, it looks like a kaleidoscope, and it sort of is a kaleidoscope. I can't have you look in. But after you would pick your colors, you would put them together on a table or where you're going to start color planning your rug, and you actually look through and you start to turn. And as you start to turn, it works like a kaleidoscope, and you can tell the different varying degrees of what color. So if we had green, red, and gold down, and you would keep turning this until you decided I want more green, or I want more gold, and I want only a little bit of red, or I want a lot of red, a little bit of gold, and this allows you to help color plan. It's also a lot of fun. It is like a kaleidoscope. It's very lightweight. And we do keep, it does keep you in perspective for how much of a color you would like. Quilters have been using this for years, and when you get stuck or when you look at your rug and you say the colors aren't working, and you look through here, it may be that the colors work, but not the proportion you have the colors in. Okay? So this is like a kaleidoscope, but it really does help you sort your colors. This is called the Viewfinder. Yes, it looks like a little thing for a peephole in a door, but when you look through it as you're planning your rug and you look from a distance, it puts it away so you can see in perspective if your rug is looking the way you think it does. We always work very close. Yes, we put it on the floor. Yes, we take pictures of it, and you can do a black and white or different things. But this is how you would view it as you're hooking it from a distance, and you can see if everything is in perspective or if it's not in perspective. It's nice. It can go in your tool bag. It's nice to look at. It also, when you put it on the floor after you've been hooking for a while and you look through it, it gives you the depth perception and the ability to see if everything is where it should be. Tool bags, very important. And also it's very important for another reason, because this is one version of a tool bag. You can go to the Dollar Tree, you can go any place, a cosmetic bag, but keep your tools together in one little bag. And by responding to the podcast and liking the podcast, we are once again giving away a little gift, because this is our thank you, W. Cushing, Rug Hooking Magazine, and Ampry Publishing, because without Ampry Publishing and Rug Hooking Magazine, this would not be happening. And we want to thank them for letting the podcast come up again so quickly. So, in here is it's a little pouch, and you should keep your tools in a little pouch so you know where they are. Well, this one doesn't fit. But at the end, you're going to win this little pouch filled with some fun little tools, and I'm not going to tell you what tools they are. It's just going to be a lot of little tools. And Rug Hooking Magazine will pick the winner, and we'll announce the winner like we did last time. Again, we need to thank Rug Hooking Magazine and Ampry Publishing, because without them, we would not be doing this. This is a strip sizer, but it's not just a strip sizer. This shows you it's metal, and this shows you the different cuts. So if you buy some cut wool and you see that they're all different sizes and you don't know what size they are, all you do is you lay the wool just like this. Oh look, that's a size 4. Nope, not a 5. And definitely not a 6. So it allows you to see what size is the strip. Or if you cut the strip and you forgot what size it was, then you can look at it again. However, it also provides another useful measure. If you're going to do lettering, and you have lettering on your rug, and we'll go over here for a quick second, because if there is lettering, just say this is the lettering we're going to use. Well, we would have to use a size 3 to do this lettering. Size 4 is too big. It allows you to see what size cut you would use for the lettering. Also, it allows spacing. So if you have a number 10 and you wanted to do a border, you would do 1, 2, 3. You would need 3 size 10s to use a border. It shows you how wide of a border or how many rows you would need. And it works really well for lettering too. Really good tool, nice and sturdy. It's been invaluable to me because sometimes I just throw cuts into a bag and then I don't remember what they are. Cutters. We're just going to briefly touch on cutters. There are Bliss cutters. We have the B-line cutters that come in the toolbox. There's Sizex, there are Fraser cutters, you can hand cut, you can hand tear. Cutters are up to you as an individual, whatever you would like to do. The Frasers mount on the table, they also make the Bliss. There's Townsend, there's B-line Townsend. That is a choice that you make for yourself. Another good tool that keeps everything organized is the Stash and Go. And this is the Stash and Go, okay? And it's rubber, but it holds everything by your workstation. And this is really good if you're going to rug school or a rug camp or a hook-in, and you want to keep your stuff where it should be, and you don't want it to float all over, including your readers, because I lose my readers on a regular basis, and it will hold everything right next to your workstation. Also, you can put your name on it, but it's a really good, heavy, balanced, keeps everything in order so you're not chasing it around the room. Now, we're going to talk just for a minute about dyeing. Of course, we have the Cushing dyes that come in packages. They come in the yellow envelopes because of the pigments, and it keeps the pigment stable. That's why so many of you have dyes that are 20, 25 years old and you can still use them and they never decompose. But with any acid dye, whether it's Prochem, whether it's Jacquard, but an acid dye, the only thing that ruins an acid dye from being used is water. So as long as you keep them high and dry and out of direct light, you will be fine with your dyes. A great beginner dye spoon is the spoon we make here. It's a $15 spoon. And you have to know your math to do some formulas because it's a 1/4 and a 32nd. In fact, let me just double check that with my glasses to make sure it's a 32nd. And yes, it is. So if you had to do a teaspoon of a dye, you would do 4. If you had to do a 1/16 of a dye, you would do half of a 32nd. But this is a good beginner dye spoon if you're going to take, you've not been in the dye kitchen before, but you want to try it. This is citric acid. The citric acid comes in a 1/2 pound and a pound. You can use that in place of vinegar to set your acid dye. So this is the way that it is packaged. These are bluettes. These are great tools. These are great tools because no heat gets through them. They're not very attractive, okay? But if you want to take right out of the dye bath, wool, yarns, fleece, the heat does not go through and you can pick it right up out of there. So bluettes work very, very well. Binding tape. Different ways to bind your rug after you've finished. Here are some binding tape. It's a cotton twill tape. It is stiff. If you like it looser, you would have to wash it. It comes in a myriad of colors, and it's a great way and a good tool to have. So, a lot of people will whip their rugs, okay? And unfortunately, Lisanne does not whip her rugs because it looks like a hoop skirt in the wind. I've never learned how to whip correctly. I envy those that do. But if you do, and there's many different yarns, and I'm just going over this yarn. This is called a Burley spun. It pulls like a 6 or an 8. But when you look for yarns, make sure, I like to use 100% wool. I like them to be spun very tightly so they don't fray, and I use them as I would in a noodle. Several of you had sent in questions previous to the podcast about what had been used in Here Comes Santa for the cuffs, for the cuff on the hat, the cuff on his Santa suit. And I will use a wool yarn that hooks like a noodle to give it extra dimension, and this is the yarn that was used. It's very nice to use. It doesn't have a lot of flyaways, and because it's 100% wool, it will wear very, very well. Okay, if you're stuck for any projects, this is the latest rug hooking book through the year. Very happy, a lot of great artists in this book, a lot of great patterns, some of which are Joan Moshimer's, and some of her original rugs are even pictured in this book. So, the other thing that we said we would do, and I want to talk about a few things, is sculpting. A lot of you asked about the sculpting, so we'll come over and talk about sculpting and using a Burling iron. So you might say, well, what's a Burling iron? Do I have to steam it? Is it like an iron? I don't want to iron. I don't even like to steam my own rugs. A Burling iron is not an iron at all. A Burling iron is a pair of tweezers. And they used to look a lot different, and they used to be very expensive. I had these remade for me, and with a Burling iron provides two things. It levels your loops so that they're even. You can do it before you steam your rug, after you steam your rug, while you're hooking your rug. Also, when you want to pull out your loops and you want to pull it from the bottom, notice not the top, this will also pull out your loops. It is a graduated tip, so it will pull from a size 2 cut and level it to a size 8 cut and level it, or 8.5 actually. So how does this work? Well, your rug doesn't even have to be on the frame. So here we have some reindeer antlers. They don't have their eyes in yet. They're getting there. And my loops aren't too even. So what I do is I just put them in, I slide these in, and I pull them up. And I'm doing this on a number 6 cut, and I'm making sure that they're even and level the way I want them to be. Also, for those of you who pack, this is a great way for you, and I won't mention any names, you all know who you are, Anne, Karen, a few other people. But here you go. So they're even. Now, by doing that, and I don't know if you can see it, it just pulls it up and pulls it even. So, and it doesn't pull the loop next to it down. What it does is it just takes the two that you pull, and you see this one's a little out of whack here, so I'm going to pull it up even, and now it's back in line. And that allows you to keep it level, to keep it even, but not pull the loop on each side of it down or out. Now, if you have to pull something out, you should always pull from the back, not the front. It's less stress on your linen. So, if I have to pull this out, I'm going to switch it, and I'm going to pull. And then I'm just going to pull it like that for the least amount of stress. And it will pull nice and evenly. And then if you have to, you always do this. If you don't want to do that, then you just put your 2 points together, you pressure them together, and it will even out your linen again to redo. And this also works for Oxford punch as well. So,
I use it to unjam staples in my stapler.
yes, Amanda uses it to unjam staples in her stapler. Is that what you, or did somebody write that in?
Oh, I'm just adding.
Yes, she does that. Okay.
It's a wonderful tool.
It's a wonderful tool, so you should always have it. So here we are, just like that. So this is the Burling Iron. The Burling Iron used to cost $40, now it's $9.75. So it's a good tool to have in your toolbox. Next, I want to talk about sculpting for a little bit. I really think that, you know, you asked the last time, a lot of you wanted to hear about the sculpting. Sculpting is not Waldoboro. Waldoboro is a very precise art form. There is different hoving that goes on. It's packed in so tightly, usually with a smaller cut, that you can't put a toothpick through. The Queen of Waldoboro is Jackie Hansen, and it is, you can Google, it's from Waldoboro, Maine, and that is, it almost looks like a Chinese sculpted rug. It is beautiful, it is gorgeous, but sculpting is a little bit different. It's when you want to create dimension in your rug, and you need something to create that dimension. So I'm going to take you through these rugs where there's sculpting, and you can see where it is, and then we'll demonstrate it. In this case, in this rug, the sculpting is right here. The tree that was in the barn, on the barn, was just fading away. So I hooked this very high. It is a texture, combined a texture and dyed wool, and I clipped it and trimmed it almost even with the hooking. As you can tell, it's not quite even with the hooking, but almost, as you can see. And by sculpting it, it stands out from the barn now and looks to be in front of the barn. Also sculpted on this piece is the church steeple and the sides. The steeple is sculpted so it will stand up through the trees, and then this is raised up to look like the bell tower and to give it dimension. So this is sculpted and this is sculpted, but from a distance it just creates a three-dimensional effect. Also sculpted, and this pattern was in an insert pattern in a rug hooking magazine last January, February. This piece, this is sculpted. I wanted the roof to look snowy when I did it. I wanted it to raise up from the background. I wanted it to raise up from the cottage. So I sculpted the snow on the roof to look like it was completely immersed in snow. And again, this was the free pattern in the January-February issue of Rug Hooking magazine. A lot of fun to hook, especially on a snowy day. Where Santa is, I always like to sculpt Santa's mustache and Santa's eyebrows. I clipped them. This is a wider cut sculpt than this or the tree or the steeple. So when you sculpt a texture, it takes on a new look. And the texture was flaxen linen, and it's in the beard, but looks completely different because you open it up when you sculpt it. Another good example of sculpting is in Here Comes Santa. So in Here Comes Santa, I sculpted the bell with 3 different wools, and I just pulled them high, pulled them all together, and clipped them to look like a jingle bell. Of course, his eyebrows and his mustache are sculpted as well. His buttons are sculpted. And then on Mr. Teddy Bear, I sculpted this piece of Mr. Teddy Bear so that it looked like the teddy bear's muzzle, and I sculpted in his ears. It creates a dimension, but not overpowering. It doesn't overpower the piece.
Somebody would like to know if you can sculpt in rug punch.
Yes, you can sculpt in rug punch. If you're going to punch in a 14 or a 10, to say you're going to punch your rug in a 10, you would go to a 14, or turn it and hook it, and then you can sculpt it in rug punch as well. So this allows you to have that dimension.
He's beautiful.
So, how do we achieve sculpting? How do we achieve sculpting? Voila. Here is a poinsettia ready to go. And I will hook some in the center as well. But as you can tell, I've hooked this pretty high. This is a size 4 cut. I've hooked this very, very high. And I'm going to trim it down. This has been sculpted. This has been sculpted. Same here. Same here. And it's really nice to feel. With it being sculpted this way, you can also walk on it. I know there's a lot of people who ask that question, but if this was an on-the-floor rug, the way that it is sculpted, you can walk on it. It will not hurt it. So, I have packed this in really, really tight. As a matter of fact, it probably could have been packed a tad more, but it's good. So it's nice, it's firm. I put my hand on it. Okay. So now I'm going to take my scissors, and the first cut is the one that always hurts. You're always afraid that you're not going to do it right, something's going to happen, but the first cut is the one that hurts, and then after that it's easier. However, with sculpting, unlike your hair will grow back. If you cut it too short in sculpting, it won't grow back and you have to pull it out. So it's better to take this in increments. As you can tell, it's all almost the same height. It's packed in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top off, just like that. And I'm going to put those there for a minute and use the bigger scissors. And I'm just going to take this right down, just like that. Now, I've taken my first one down. Okay.
I can see how that would be scary.
It is very scary. Your first one is scary. Okay, so there we are. I've taken the first, they're not all cut, but I've taken that first one down. And I'll probably have to take it down again, but I've left enough to do that. So now I'm going to come on the side and I'm going to give it an angle. And that's what we want. We want an angle cut to this. Okay, so we want an angle. And then I want to angle it because this is a leaf to the poinsettia, and I do want it angled. Okay, so now I move this around and I'm going to put this over here. Right, now I'm going to take it down again. You can see, you can tell what you missed, which is good. And as you can tell, here is the vein, so I know what I'm going against. Here's the vein to the leaf. So I'm going down again, just like this. Just like that. And there we are. Increments, don't jump it. Don't rush it. Just make sure it's the right height. You can see it's starting to look a little bit better. Background is in, because your background will push this in and define it a little bit more. But it goes through phases. It looks a little choppy, and then it looks really nice, and we're at that really nice stage right now. There we are. There we are. There we go. And then I'm going to take the Burling Iron and I'm going to move it around a little bit with the Burling Iron this way. I'm just raking it this way to make sure I don't have any flyaway ones. And to make sure that I've clipped all the loops. And I think I have. And I think we're okay. I think we've got it. There we go. And yes, you can go back and clip for hours, but again, don't clip too much. So there we are, there's the other side of it. And that now is ready to go. Now, it's as high as this. It might be too high when the other side is hooked, because this will be hooked at a lower level. But I think it will look really pretty when it's done. So, how do you start? You saw that it was hooked in. So how do you start with the sculpting? And I'm going to actually reach over here, get this, get a hook, and I will get a bent hook in a second, and I will go back and use a bent hook so you can see how that goes. There we are. See, keeps everything nice and orderly. Put that aside. I'm used to putting it aside, so I usually have 4-pawed help, but they're on a siesta break right now, so we don't have any 4 paws down here. Okay, here we go. So if I wanted to do the center berries, yes, they should be yellow, but we're just going to do that for right now with this. And I'm going to come up, my tail's up, and I'm going to hook very high because I want to sculpt something round in the center. And this is as high as you would hook. And it would be that high. But it would also be this packed in. So for those of you that like to pack, this is the technique for you. Again, no names mentioned. But your initials are, no, I'm only kidding, I won't do that to you. And you can see that I am putting it in. Now, if this was Waldoboro, I would start at one level, my next round would be a higher level, my next round would be a higher level. But this is really how it would start. That is how high it would be hooked. Yes, you do waste some wool this way. There is no doubt about it, but it is worth the effect.
Would you say that was about 1 inch high?
I would say it's about 1 inch high. You can go 1 inch to 1.5 inches. It depends on how much of the, if it was a texture, you might go even a little bit higher so that you get a little bit of the texture in. And it can be done in any size cut. It can be done from a 2 to an 8.5 to a hand torn, and it looks different every time that you do that. And you see, you just would keep going round and round and round, and then you would trim it. Okay? Now I'm going to take the bent hook. and I'm actually going to come in the bent hook, and I'm going to hook a little leaf so you can see how it does take the pressure. It's a slide. Okay, now if I had a wider cut, I would go deeper down and make a bigger hole. Or if you're having trouble getting your loops up and you're unsure why, use more of the hook and it punches that bigger hole. But I'm only using a little bit of the hook, and if you notice, I'm not fishing at all. My wrist isn't moving hardly, there's no pressure. Now I can go punch over. I set my distance and my height with one motion, down and over. And I'm going to switch for a minute to show you the pencil hook. So if I'm going to do it with a pencil hook, because you can see it a little clearer, I slide down my last loop, I punch it in, I pull it over. I am not counting. I slide it down, I pull it over in one motion. And they usually turn out pretty even, as you can see. Now, I don't usually turn my frame because when I was taught to rug hook back in 1976, we weren't allowed to turn our frames. And so I can hook in any direction because that's how we were taught. So for me, with a frame, we're going back to, well, it's up to you. I don't need a frame that turns. It's not, in fact, the frame I use for my bigger rugs, I don't use a frame that turns. I don't need it to turn. And sometimes when I'm with a student on a frame that turns, I have to lock it because I'm not used to a turning frame. So that's my preference, where other people really love one that would spin around, one that flips to side to side. So again, we're going to slide down that loop, punch it down, pull it over. Slide down, pull it over. Slide down, pull it over. And if you say it to yourself long enough, you do eventually becomes memory. So there you are. So that's how I hook quickly. That's how I set my loops even and the distance even as well. So suppose we want to add a little glitter to our rugs. Some of you saw the sparkle in Santa's eye, and this is a new tool to our trade that I really, really like to use. Thanks, Amanda. And this is needlepoint. It's called Arctic Rays. We have it in many different colors. It comes in velvet, it comes in suede, it comes in patent leather, you name it. You can even use a little patent leather for leaves. This is another great sparkle. So you name it, we have it. But what I really like about it is it adds a little bit without overdoing. And yes, we have sparkle wool with sparkle in it, you know, all sorts of stuff. But this is what it looks like. It is a needlepoint yarn. And if I wanted some sparkle in my poinsettia, you can do it one of two ways. You can hook it just like you would after you get done, and you cannot press this. This is a synthetic, so be careful when you press it. You can't use full steam. If you do, sometimes it will melt. It is an acrylic, I have to say that, just like an acrylic yarn. So you can mix it in here, just like I'm doing right now. And if I did that, when I went to trim it, it would just work out wonderfully. If I can get this back out, there we go. So as you can see, if I were to trim this down, we would get a little bit of sparkle. And you can just hook it in, and it will add sparkle. Now, you can hook it in that way. You could trim it, it would spark up. Or you can take, when you're hooking, just like this, and hook it as with your noodle, so that they come up together and at the same, just about the same height. Sometimes the glitter will come up just a tad higher, but you can see the white thread sometimes you can't. If you're adding snow into the background of something, this is perfect. But as you can tell, pulling them up together also helps. So there you have just a little bit of it, just little hints here and there. You can also tie it into a rug, as if you want to put stars in a sky. You can take one end up, then the other, tie it in a few knots, and it will look like stars in a sky. You can add it to a coat. You can add it as snow on a tree. So this is a nice way to do it. It's not overpowering. It's not as heavy as yarn. I do like to use some glitter yarns once in a while. But this is called Arctic Rays. And it's a newer tool in our toolbox, but it's still a lot of fun to use, especially this time of year.
Someone would like to know, if you steam it from the back, will it still melt?
No, if you steam it from the back, it will not melt. But just, I have a professional mangle that I use to steam my rugs, so I have to be careful because the wool setting is extremely hot. If you're just using your iron to steam with, then no, it won't from the back. You should be fine. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Somebody was interested in how to take linen off and on of a Snapdragon.
Oh, sure. We can show you how to do that because it's on a Snapdragon right now. So when I get done here, like I'm done, I'm just going to pull this up and I'm going to clip it just like I would a regular noodle. Lay my scissors down, and that's the beauty of these scissors. You lay them down and they trim evenly with your hooking. If you notice when I go to trim, I put my finger underneath, and I don't know why. I've always done it that way, but it takes it up so you don't cut the linen, and you can trim it evenly. Okay? If you go, and I'm going to take the magnet off, magnet here, magnet on the bottom, that's how it connects. Take that off and put that here. So when I go to take it off of a Snapdragon, I will take it and I'll flip this. There's little paddles underneath, and I will flip them. Okay? So these are the paddles that I was flipping. When I go to put it on the Snapdragon, I lay it on the top, just like this. Okay? And I start at a side, and I pull the paddle out. I pull that paddle so it's tight. And for me, I always do the top last, and I pull it super tight, and that's the way it stays. When I release it the exact same way that I put it on. I release it on the side, bottom, top, and then I just take it off like that. Now, some people who have gripper frames or other frames, and you can see the back. We're looking at the back now, and you can see that this could grab on a gripper. What you can do is take the freezer wrap and put it here to protect it so that it doesn't grab if you had a lot of mixed media pieces in there. Also, I did put freezer wrap when I was hooking this Santa. After I had hooked this, and I was going to the red, I did put the freezer wrap paper, the ones that stick, the stick and seal, I did put it on this so that the red fibers didn't fly onto the white. So that's another way to protect your white when you put it on the top.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that you can see?
Not that I can see at the moment.
Okay.
I just have a lot of comments. They love the Snapdragons.
Oh, good. Well, we're glad that you love them. I don't think there's any other tools that we have, the tools of the trade, but comment, ask questions. I know a couple of you are watching it later on today. Just make your comments so you can win the free tool bag, and it's going to be like a nice little stocking coming towards you.
What was the tool for whipping? Somebody would like to know.
Oh, okay. The tools for whipping are these. and they are wonder clips. They're all mini little clips, and they grab on, so when you would roll your linen to whip, if you didn't want to stitch this down, you would use a mini clip, and the mini clip would grab it, and it holds it. Also, if you're doing a bi-level or a tri-level of whipping, you can use the colors. So blue is the first level, green is the second level, yellow is the third level, because they are colored.
And somebody else would like to know exactly why you would use the magnifying glass, the viewfinder.
The viewfinder I use if I'm creating a depth perception. If I'm doing architecture or landscape, and I really, really want to see, did I create that depth? Does it have the distance? Like on the blue of dusk, did I achieve that snow look? You'll look through it, and it's like looking through a painting to see if anything glares out at you. Is your dimension correctly? Is your perspective correctly? If you think something's off, the viewfinder will say, yes, you're right, or no, you're wrong.
Somebody would like to know, are all these tools available in our shop?
Yes, all the tools are available here in our shop. They're either on our website or on our Etsy shop. Yes, these are all the tools. Some of them we make right here at the studio.
Somebody is saying that the webcam was blurry from time to time.
Yes.
I just wanted them to know that it's the autofocus on
Oh.
your iPad.
Okay. It is the autofocus on the iPad. We're sorry about that. Hopefully you didn't miss anything. Is there anything that they'd like to see again?
I think somebody wanted to see the bent hooking demonstration.
Sure, we
but
can do that.
they also can watch it any time on
What we'll do is we can do the bent
Rug
hook
Hooking Magazine.
again. That's no problem. We can do the bent hook again. That is not a problem. So I've got to put it back onto the frame. So I'm going to go side. Well, I thought I was going to do side. Where are we? There we are. I didn't. I had flipped it the wrong way. There we are. So pull it. Oh, come on. There we go. Pull it one. Pull it two. Nice and tight. So with the bent hook, and I have to have it come a little bit closer to me than this, and I'm going to lean it this way so it can be seen. You're going to push it in and pull it up. Well, I was going to do that, but there we go. It's hard to do it away. There we are. So, in, up, in, up. Now, I was not using the Ergo and it wasn't really working correctly. So, if I do it this way and I push it in and pull it up, push it in, pull it up. And you can go up a little higher if you'd like, but I like to keep my hand right on the linen and do it sideways so I don't do this. When you do this, if I do this, I catch the linen threads. If I keep it this way, I don't touch the linen threads.
Great.
Okay.
Somebody is asking where this podcast can be viewed again.
Rug Hooking Magazine, on Rug Hooking Magazine's Facebook page. We will have the podcast will be up just like the last one. Also, it'll be available on a couple of different rug hooking pages on Facebook. And their Rug Hooking Magazine will send me a link, and we will send out the link and broadcast the link through all rug hooking pages, so it can be viewed again if you'd like to see it again. Thank you for that.
And another question about the plastic or rubber that goes around the gripper strips.
Yes.
They wanted to know if you knew where people can get that.
Yes, grippers. We do not sell the grippers. They're actually made in York, Maine, which is about 11 miles from here. And it is the Howard Brush Company. Howard, just like the name Howard, Brush, B-R-U-S-H Company. And they have different grippers for different linens, for different backings. And they are the expert at that. So you can Google them, Howard Brush, York, Maine. Their phone number comes up. their website comes up, and they would be able to answer any questions, because there is a trick to putting the gripper strips on your frame. And if you put them on wrong, your frame will not stick to your frame. So they are really the experts there, and they sell it in strips.
Great.
Okay.
I don't have any more questions at this
Okay.
moment.
Well, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. Be safe, have fun, hook, post pictures of what you're hooking. I hope everything is merry and bright, and your 2019 is everything you would expect it to be. I'm going to have Amanda pan over to the pine cones on the wall, because they were part of our feature, and they were featured in the September-October issue of Rug Hooking Magazine, and we have them hung together on the wall, and it's quite impressive. So I'm going to have Amanda pan over to that. The one with the green background was hooked by Jessie Trebayne, the limer green background. The next one was hooked by Evelyn Lawrence. The neutral one was hooked by Janice Alt, and the pink one turned the other way was hooked by myself. So they are the pine cones. We'll leave you with that happy winter thought. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them tonight. Happy holidays, enjoy yourself, and again, thank you to Rug Hooking Magazine for this opportunity. Bye-bye now.